Hey everybody! Today we're going to be moving on to the next section of this course, Basic Router Configuration. As always, you can find this information and these resources in the link in the video description below. I hope that you'll go download this so that you can have this for your notes, as well as the lab at the bottom so that you can practice on your own. So in simple terms, a router is a device that provides connectivity to devices across different networks. It operates at layer 3 of the OSI model, and it works primarily with packets and IP addresses. For a router to provide connectivity between networks, it must know how to reach each one, and all networks connected to the same router can communicate with each other unless they've been configured elsewise. So coming down to some different command line interface modes and navigation commands, similar to a switch and almost identical for Cisco devices, you're going to have user exec mode, where you can run some basic show commands, but the functionality is limited. Privileged exec mode, where you can run all the show commands and see more detailed information about your device. Global configuration mode, this is the base point for configuring your device, and from here you can enter some of the configuration commands, and you can also access higher configuration modes. Then there's interface configuration. Just like it sounds, this is how you would configure a specific interface on the device. And then line configuration is more for your management access, like console ports or SSH or Telnet. So some basic navigation. By default, when you get into a device, you'll start in user exec mode, which is denoted by this caret symbol. In order to enter privileged exec mode, you need to type enable. You can password restrict this mode, and this is denoted by the pound sign. To get to global config mode, you're going to type configuration terminal, and then this mode is going to be denoted by the word config. From global config mode, if you type interface followed by the interface that you want to configure, you'll be able to enter that specific configuration mode for that interface. This will be denoted by the word config-if. Also from global config mode, if you type line followed by the line that you want to configure, you'll enter the specific configuration mode for that line, whether it be the console line or the virtual lines. This is denoted by the word config-line. In order to leave the current mode and return to the previous lower mode, you're going to type exit. And in order to get back to privileged exec mode from wherever you are in a higher mode, you can type the word end. And then if you want to get back to user exec mode from privileged exec mode, you can type disable. Alright, so just want to point out here before we get into actual commands for the devices that it's really important that you know what mode you're in when you're entering your commands, because many commands are mode specific. So if you're entering a command and it's not working and you're sure that it's the right command, you just need to double check that you're in the right mode for that command. One easy way to do that is type half your command and hit the tab key. If it auto completes, then you're in the right mode. If it doesn't and it gives you a message like unrecognized command, then you're probably in the wrong mode for that command, and you need to double check where you're at in the device. Alright, so hopping into the new commands, they're not really new if you've watched the switch configuration video already. They're almost identical for the router for basic setup, but let's go ahead and do a quick review on them anyways. So starting off, when we hop into our router command line interface, hit enter to get started. You see we start in user exec mode with that caret. So if we type enable, that'll get us into privileged exec mode, denoted by that pound symbol. If we hit disable, we'll return to user exec mode. Exit and end are ways to get back to higher or lower levels of commands. So if we were to go ahead and type configure terminal to get into global configuration mode, and then we were to type exit, we're back in privileged exec mode. Likewise, if we were to type and, same thing. The tab key will autocomplete for us, so if I just type half of this command and hit tab, it goes ahead and completes that word for me, and then start the next word, hit tab, it'll finish that for me as well. The question mark, like I said in the last video, this is a super important and powerful command for you, because if you type question mark then it will show you all the possible commands that you can enter from the current position that you're at. So this is something that you will use a lot as a beginner in networking. Alright, we already went over the configure terminal command and we're in global configuration mode. From here we can give the device a banner by saying banner MOTD, and then we need to delimit this message with 2 characters that are the same that won't show up in our message. So let's go ahead and use the exclamation point and say my banner rocks and end it with the exclamation point. We can also give the device a new host name by typing host name, and we'll say my router. And you can see that our device's host name has changed right there. We can also protect privileged exec mode by typing enable secret, we'll just say Cisco. Essentially that forces the user to enter a password to get from user exec mode to privileged exec mode. We can also create a local account on the device with this username password command. So username Cisco, password Cisco. And then we can give it an IP domain name by going IP domain name Cisco. The domain name on these devices is important because to generate cryptographic keys, it uses that domain name in the process. So if you haven't set this, then you can't generate any keys for use with things like SSH. So our next command, we'll go ahead and we'll generate some keys. We'll go crypto key generate RSA. Make sure we have a minimum of 2048 bits in the modulus because that's more secure. And we've just generated some keys that we can use with SSH. Now we can run a command to see our current configuration, which is show running. Well, actually, first we need to pop out of this configuration mode and be in privileged exec mode. Then we can do this command. You notice how there I was trying to tab it out and nothing was happening. Good indicator that I'm in the wrong mode for my command. But here I did tab it out and it completed for me. Go ahead and hit enter and we can see the current running configuration of the device. We hit spacebar, we can scroll page by page until we get to the very end of it. Moving forward, we can go ahead and we can hop into the console line, so get back in global configuration mode. Type line console, we'll do 0 for our console access. Now we're in console line configuration mode. From here we could specify for it to log in with a password. But first we would have to set a password for this mode. And we'd actually have to give it a password. We'll just say Cisco. Then we could say login, and that'll require the user to enter this password if they're connected via console cable before they can get into the device. We go ahead and hop out of that configuration mode. We can hop into the virtual lines, line VTY. On a router, we'll go 0 to 4. So there's 5 virtual lines for SSH or Telnet access. In here, we could say login local, and that will require the user to authenticate with the local account that we've created on the device before they can gain access. Now while we're in here, we can also go transport input SSH to disable Telnet and require all connections be made with SSH. If we move forward, there's another command, service password dash encryption. So if we exit out of line configuration mode and we type service password encryption, what this is going to do is this is going to mask our passwords in our configurations. So if we scroll up to see where we were looking at our running configuration, technically this password is already encrypted because we used the enable secret. But if we find our username, Cisco password, Cisco, you can see that it's in plain text right there. Now if we run this command, or we did run this command, if we go ahead and we hop out of here and we show that running configuration again, now we can see that password has been masked, so it's no longer human readable at a glance in the configuration. If we keep on going, we can hop into an interface, so back to global configuration mode. We can hop into an interface like G001, and any commands we enter at this point would be configuring this specific interface. So we could give it a description. like our gig line. We could also give it an IP address, like 192.168.0.1 with a subnet mask. And then, of course, we would want to issue a no shutdown command if we were to want to use this interface in the future. You see that brought the interface up. Now we could actually look at how this interface was configured. If we run show IP interface brief, and we can see that that interface that we just configured has an IP address and the status is up. Another thing we can do is we can go ahead and put no in front of a command to remove that command from the configuration. So if we hop back in to that interface and we say no IP address 192.168.0.1 with that subnet mask, and then we can use a trick here and say do show IP interface brief. Essentially, do allows us to run a command outside of its appropriate mode of operation. And now we can see that that gigabit Ethernet, because we issued that no IP address command, is unassigned. Now moving in to our final command, which is to save our work, we would type copy running config startup config. This is copying our running config, which is stored in RAM, or which will be lost if we power off the device, into our startup config, which is stored in NVRAM, which does not get lost when we power off our device. And that essentially saves our work. So we'll go ahead and do that, accept the destination file name, and our work has been saved. So that was a quick rundown of our new commands. A lot of them are identical to commands on a switch and a lot of Cisco devices. And that's how we could perform some basic setup steps on our devices to allow SSH access, a little bit of security, and a little bit of housekeeping like host names and domain names and stuff like that. I hope that you'll join me for the next video where we'll be going into the lab for this section, and we'll go ahead and actually configure a router. So I'll see you next time.